Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, it's never enough? You give more, she pulls away. You set a boundary, she punishes you with silence. You try to talk, and suddenly you're the bad guy. That confusion isn't an accident, it's a tactic. Some women use psychological tricks so smooth that you end up questioning yourself instead of questioning her. And the cost? Your power, your peace of mind, and sometimes your entire sense of who you are. But once you learn to see the pattern, you'll never fall for it again. Today, I'm exposing the 10 manipulation tricks women use to control men and the counter moves that put the power back in your hands. Before we get deeper into this, let's do something simple. Tap subscribe, give this video a like, and leave a quick comment. Just type YES if you've ever felt manipulated in a relationship, or NO if you think you never have. I'll bet the answers will surprise you. Because in a moment, I'm going to show you how the very first tactic, guilt trips, works so quietly you may not even realize it's happening until it's too late. Number 1. Guilt trips. This is one of the oldest emotional traps in the book, and it works because it cuts straight into a man's instinct to be a good guy. A guilt trip is when she makes you feel like you're in the wrong, even when you've done nothing wrong, or when something is completely out of your control. The goal isn't resolution, it's compliance. It's about bending your will without having to argue facts. Picture this. You tell her you can't make it to an event because of an important work obligation. Instead of accepting your reality, she says, "Well, if you really cared, you'd be there." Suddenly, you're no longer a hard-working man fulfilling a responsibility. You're being painted as cold, neglectful, maybe even selfish. The manipulation lies in shifting the frame. You're not being responsible. You're being unloving. That sting of guilt pulls you toward giving in. Why does it work so well? Because many men grew up watching guilt being used at home, maybe from a parent, maybe even directed at you. You learned that to be seen as good, you had to surrender, and that conditioning sticks unless you break it. In a healthy relationship, affection and respect aren't built on guilt. A woman who leans on guilt to control you is showing you she values leverage more than love. The way you take your power back is by calmly holding your decision. You don't over-explain. You don't defend. You simply stay rooted in the truth. Your boundaries matter, and real connection doesn't require emotional blackmail. Number 2. Withholding affection. This tactic is subtle, but make no mistake, it can shape your behavior faster than any loud argument. Instead of open conflict, she uses warmth, closeness, and intimacy as a reward when you comply, and as punishment when you don't. Affection becomes conditional, something you have to earn by bending to her will. Here's how it usually plays out. You set a boundary. Maybe you say no to something unreasonable, or you stand firm on a principle. Suddenly she grows cold. She's too tired for physical closeness, too distant for warmth, or she simply withdraws her approval until you start questioning yourself. The silent message is clear. Love and affection are no longer freely given. They're a bargaining chip. Why does this work? Because many men grew up in homes where affection was scarce or inconsistent. If you lacked nurturing as a child, withholding affection now hits like a lightning strike. It awakens that old fear of rejection, that gnawing feeling that you have to perform to be loved. And the more you chase her approval, the tighter her grip becomes. Love that disappears the moment you say no isn't love, it's leverage. A woman who truly values you doesn't dangle intimacy like a carrot on a stick. The antidote is recognition. See the game for what it is. Refuse to negotiate for scraps of affection, and stay rooted in the truth that a healthy bond is freely given, not bartered. Number 3. Lovebombing. On the surface, it feels intoxicating, like you finally met the woman who sees you, adores you, and makes you the center of her universe. But that rush of affection isn't real connection. It's strategy. Love bombing floods you with attention so quickly, so intensely, that you drop your guard. By the time you realize what's happening, you're already hooked on the high. Imagine this. She showers you with endless compliments, constant messages, late-night calls, and grand gestures. She tells you you're the one, maybe even within weeks. You feel chosen, desired, and needed. Then slowly, the requests start rolling in. Maybe she asks for favors that cross boundaries. Maybe she tests how far she can push before you resist. And because you're already emotionally drunk, you say yes, just to keep that intoxicating energy alive. Why does it work? Because love bombing hijacks your brain chemistry. The dopamine surge from constant validation mimics the effects of addiction. You start craving her attention the way an addict craves a fix. And just like any addiction, the withdrawal feels unbearable. That's when compliance becomes automatic. You give in just to get the hit again. Fast affection isn't real connection. If it burns too hot, too soon, it's usually a setup. A man who values himself enjoys the warmth, but doesn't confuse intensity with authenticity. He recognizes that real connection takes time, patience, and consistency, not fireworks designed to blind him. The way you protect yourself is by slowing down, observing patterns, and refusing to mistake manipulation for passion. Number 4, playing the victim. This is one of the most disarming tactics because it flips the script. Suddenly, she's not the one at fault, you are. No matter what actually happened, she paints herself as the wounded party, the one you've supposedly hurt, neglected, or abandoned. And if you're not paying attention, you'll step right into the trap of fixing her, protecting her, or even taking the blame for her mistakes. Here's an example. She cheats, but instead of owning her actions, she tells you she only did it because you were distant or not giving enough. Now the spotlight isn't on her betrayal, it's on your supposed failure. Or she lashes out at you, then claims she only lost control because you made her feel unsafe. The story always ends with the same result. She's the helpless one, you're the problem, and you're the one who must change. Why does this tactic hit so hard? Because most men are wired to protect, to provide, to fix. Maybe you grew up defending a parent. Maybe you were conditioned to shoulder blame to keep the peace. Playing the victim hooks straight into that instinct. You want to prove you're fair. You want to be the good guy. So you take responsibility for what isn't yours. Her mistakes are hers. If you carry them on your shoulders, you're already losing the frame. A woman who constantly frames herself as the victim while you carry the burden is using your sense of duty against you. The way out is simple but not easy. Stop accepting blame for choices that aren't yours. Keep accountability where it belongs, and refuse to let her rewrite the story so you become the villain. Number 5, rage or drama. When guilt doesn't work, when playing the victim falls flat, some women turn to sheer chaos. Instead of reasoning, she drowns you in noise, yelling, tears, accusations, even a dramatic breakdown designed to make standing your ground feel impossible. The message is simple. If you don't give in, life with me will be unbearable. Picture this. You bring up a real concern, maybe about finances, boundaries, or respect. Before you can finish, she's already raising her voice, twisting the issue, or crying uncontrollably. What began as a conversation instantly becomes a storm. And in that storm, you're pressured to drop the topic just to restore peace. The issue never gets resolved. It just gets buried under the wreckage of drama. Why does it work? Because it overwhelms your nervous system. If you grew up in a home filled with conflict, the shouting and chaos trigger old survival patterns. You either lash back with anger, which makes things worse, or you cave in to escape the discomfort. Either way, she wins by shifting control away from the original problem. Power doesn't come from shouting her down. It comes from refusing to take the bait at all. Stay calm. Keep your voice steady. Address the point without being dragged into the theatrics. When you respond differently from your usual pattern, whether you typically blow up or shut down, you send a clear signal that the game no longer works. That's how you break the cycle. Drama thrives on reaction. When you stop feeding it, the control collapses. Number 6, the silent treatment. Unlike rage or drama, this tactic doesn't shout. It whispers by saying nothing at all. It's the calculated withdrawal of communication, attention, or affection, not because she needs genuine space, but because she wants to punish and control you. Her silence isn't peace, it's pressure. Imagine this. You refuse to agree with her demand, and suddenly she disappears. No replies to your texts, no return calls. Days of cold distance that leave you pacing, replaying everything you said, wondering what you did wrong. The unspoken message is clear. You'll only get me back when you bend. It's not conflict resolution, it's emotional starvation. Why does this tactic bite so deeply? Because it taps into the primal fear of abandonment. Many men grew up with parents who shut down or withheld affection when upset. That childhood wound gets reopened every time a woman deliberately goes silent. It's not just about the current situation. It feels like you're about to lose the entire bond. Genuine space is healthy. The silent treatment is not. It's intentional stonewalling to force compliance. And once you learn to tell the difference, you strip away its power. The key is not to chase, not to beg, and not to bargain for her words. Respect real space, but refuse to play the game of silence. A healthy partner communicates. A manipulative one hides behind silence to pull your strings. Number 7, gaslighting. This isn't just manipulation, it's psychological warfare. Gaslighting is when she twists or denies reality so you start questioning your memory, your judgment, even your sanity. It's not about disagreement. It's about erasing your version of the truth until hers becomes the only one left standing. Here's what it looks like. You clearly remember something she said, but when you bring it up, she flatly denies it. That never happened. You're imagining things. Maybe you even show her proof, a text, a screenshot, but she insists you misunderstood. Or she shifts the meaning, claiming you took it out of context. The longer this goes on, the more you wonder, am I the one who's losing it? Why does gaslighting work so effectively? Because it destabilizes your core confidence. If you've ever dealt with a manipulative parent or a controlling partner before, this tactic feels hauntingly familiar. It eats away at your trust in yourself, making you increasingly dependent on her version of reality. Once you doubt your own eyes and ears, she doesn't have to control you. You'll do it to yourself. If you stop trusting your own eyes and ears, you hand her the script. Don't give that away. A healthy relationship is built on mutual trust, not constant denial of reality. When you catch gaslighting, stop debating endlessly. Check the facts if you need to, trust what you see, and refuse to let her rewrite the script of your life. Gaslighting thrives in confusion, but it collapses when confronted with clarity. Number 8, moving the goalposts. This is the tactic that keeps you chasing, but never arriving. At first, it looks like she simply wants more from the relationship. More effort, more attention, more commitment. But every time you meet the standard, she shifts it. The finish line moves, and you're left running in circles, always trying to prove yourself, never quite good enough. Here's how it plays out. She says you don't text enough, so you increase your messages. A week later, she complains you're texting too much. You adjust again, and now she says she wants phone calls instead. No matter what you do, the rules change. It's not about connection, it's about control. The goal isn't to build a stronger bond. It's to keep you working, striving, and second-guessing yourself. Why does it work? Because men are wired to solve problems. If there's a moving target, you assume the issue is effort. You just need to try harder. And if you grew up with parents who were impossible to please, this dynamic feels eerily familiar. The approval you never got as a boy becomes the approval you're still chasing as a man. If the rules keep changing, it doesn't matter how hard you try. You'll never win that game. A healthy woman communicates her needs clearly and appreciates when you meet them. A manipulative one keeps you in a permanent state of inadequacy. The way you protect yourself is by spotting the game early and refusing to play. If the standards keep shifting, the problem isn't your effort, it's her intentions. Number 9. Over-helpfulness. At first glance, it doesn't even look like manipulation. In fact, it often feels flattering. She insists on taking care of you, making decisions for you, handling things you didn't even ask her to touch. It looks like care, generosity, even devotion. But underneath the surface, the goal isn't to support you. It's to control you. Here's how it plays out. She manages your schedule without asking. She steps in to organize your finances, chooses your meals, or even controls how you spend your free time. It begins with the language of, "I'm just helping you," or "I'm doing this for your own good." And for a while, you may actually enjoy it. Who doesn't like being cared for? But over time, you feel smothered, mothered, and stripped of independence. The so-called help has turned into management of your life. Why does this tactic work? Because it plays into your natural appreciation for support. Many men, especially those who grew up with controlling parents, mistake over-helpfulness for love. You accept it because it feels familiar, even comforting. But what starts as convenience eventually becomes dependency. And once you're dependent, she holds the power. Real support makes you stronger. Control disguised as help only makes you weaker. A woman who truly respects you may offer help, but she never insists on taking the wheel. The way you defend yourself is by drawing the line. Accept genuine gestures, but remain the authority over your own life. Because the moment her help starts feeling like control, it's no longer care. It's a strategy to keep you in check. Number 10, using jealousy. This one is ancient, but still brutally effective. When all else fails, some women stir insecurity on purpose. They flirt with other men, casually mention how attractive someone else is, or bring up an ex in glowing terms. It's not an accident. It's a test. The goal is to spark fear that you're being replaced, so you scramble to win her attention back. Picture this. You're out together, and she laughs just a little too long at another man's joke. Later, she drops a line like, "Mark at work always notices the little things about me." You feel that sting in your gut, the mix of anger, competition, and desperation. And that's exactly what she's counting on. Suddenly, instead of standing firm, you're fighting for her validation. You've been pulled into a game where the prize is her approval. Why does it work so well? Because jealousy is primal. If a parent ever compared you to siblings or made you compete for affection, this tactic feels painfully familiar. It ignites your fear of being replaced, your competitive drive, and your unhealed wounds all at once. The reaction is intense, and she uses that reaction as proof of your investment. Healthy relationships don't rely on manufactured jealousy. A mature woman doesn't need to bait you with other men to feel secure in your desire. If she does, it's not love, it's manipulation dressed as passion. The only winning move here is not to play. Recognize the tactic, refuse to take the bait, and decide whether a woman who plays with fire deserves a place in your life. Now you've seen it all. 10 of the most common manipulation tactics women can use to bend men without ever raising their voice, or sometimes by raising it too much. From guilt trips to jealousy games, the strategies may look different on the surface, but underneath, they share the same purpose: control. And the men who fall for them all share the same blind spot. They ignore the signs until it's too late. This isn't a game you win by playing harder. You don't beat guilt trips by apologizing more. You don't beat drama by shouting louder. You don't beat gaslighting by debating endlessly. The only way to win is by refusing to play. That means recognizing the tactic, holding your ground, and setting boundaries that don't bend every time pressure hits. A strong man isn't the one who tolerates manipulation in the name of love. A strong man is the one who walks away when love turns into control. That doesn't mean every woman is consciously trying to manipulate you. Sometimes these behaviors come from her own wounds, her own unhealed past. But her pain doesn't justify your loss of self. You can show compassion without surrendering your dignity. So here's the choice. Do you want to be the man constantly chasing approval, or the man who stands firm in his values? Because when you respect yourself first, the right woman will recognize it and meet you there. The wrong woman will test, push, and try to break your limits. And that's your signal. Not to compromise, but to decide. If you've seen even one of these tactics in your life, share it in the comments. If this breakdown gave you clarity, hit like, share this with a man who needs it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next hard truths. Remember, the right woman will respect your boundaries. The wrong one will try to break them. And at the end of the day, you're the one who decides which woman gets to stay in your life.